but I think it's trying just the right amount. I do think you should read it, but I cannot, in good faith, suggest that you read it. Welcome to I Read This Book with Chris. I'm Chris. This is the book I read, Chronic City by Jonathan Lethem. And while discussing it, I will be drinking. This is called a Ranye West. Which is actually one of my favorite summer cocktails. I don't know if it's actually considered a cocktail. It's mainly beer. It is delicious. Chronic City by Jonathan Lethem. Let's start off with two things. One, this might be one of the favorite books that I've read this year. Two, I don't know if I knew someone who read and enjoyed all of the books that I read, I don't know that I would tell them to read this book. I don't know that I could, in good conscience, tell anyone to read this book. But I love it, and I think it's a great book. I think it's... I don't know if masterpiece is probably too strong, but it is very, very good. It's also probably the slowest book that I've ever liked. I don't like slow books. Some people may not like me for this, but I can't read Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit is great, but the Lord of the Rings, I can't read. I tried reading multiple times. I couldn't. I tried listening to it on audiobook, and I got through like the first 24 hours or something on the audiobook, and nothing had happened, so I gave up. It was slow. And this is slow. It might be... It's not slower than Lord of the Rings, but it is very slow. And yet I read it, and I loved it. And when I describe it, it doesn't sound like things I would enjoy. But I do. And there were some times where I read it and I was laughing out loud, or I felt I need to share this sentence. And I would go and I'd share it with my wife and say, look at this sentence. And she's like, this is not a sentence you would normally enjoy. And I'm like, yes, I normally would not like this. This is not up my alley. And yet it is perfectly up my alley. Why did I pick up this book? I have read one other book by Jonathan Lethem. It's right back here on my shelf. There we go. Amnesia Moon. This is a book I just picked up. The cover I thought was pretty cool. I don't know a whole lot, did not know a whole lot about it, but it was published by Tor, so I picked it up. It is not at all like The Road by Cormac McCarthy. However, the only thing that I can describe it to you is it's like The Road by Cormac McCarthy. If every chapter you read, the book has amnesia. It's a post-apocalyptic world where a guy traveling through it goes, and he's in different little segments of post-apocalyptic world where everything's different. Different parts of society has managed to survive, and all in very different ways. It's one of the favorite books that I own. 1996. I picked up Chronic City because I loved Amnesia Moon so much. And it is similar and different. So let's get into it. What is Chronic City about? It would be hard to describe the plot of it, because it doesn't really have much of a plot. There is a plot, there's just not much of it. I remember in English class as they were describing different things to look out in a book. There's characters, and there's plot, and there's setting, and there's tone, and there's voice, and there's all these things that are confusing. And I'm just like, why does any of this... Characters matter, and plot matters. Why does a whole lot else matter? Why does themes matter? Why does voice and tone matter? And it's reading books like this. It can have a plot, but the plot can not have a whole lot going on. So the plot. Chronic City is basically following two characters. You have Chase and Stedman, who is a out-of-work child actor. He does occasional, voiceover work and stuff like that. But mainly, that's just to keep him entertained and to keep him in the business. Mostly just living off his residuals. And he meets Perkus Toot, who is a very strange man. Perkis, he's kind of paranoid, kind of a conspiracy theorist, likes to make connections between all sorts of obscure bits of media. He loves old books and old magazines and old poetry and old movies and old TV shows and old records. And he'll go and he'll listen to them or watch them or read them and make connections and points. Like that guy who has his wall covered with different things that has different pieces of red yarn attached. That's what he does in his mind. And he became famous at one point because he was a rock critic, and he made, like in those magazines and stuff, and he basically made posters with rants and stuff, and he posted them all over New York, and had a little bit of fame because of that. And, in the right circles, people noticed and thought, oh, like the punk scene and stuff like that. So he's this crazy guy who doesn't really do a whole lot for a living, manages to survive doing that sort of stuff. And he becomes friends with our narrator, Chase. And so we follow Chase and Perkis throughout this as Perkis goes and tries to pull Chase into his madness, into his lunacy, into these conspiracy theories and paranoia that he has. But your grip on the story and your grip on reality is never strong, is never there. And I think the best way is just to walk you through a few different things that happen in here. And it's not really going to tell you the story, but it's going to let you have some sort of idea. One of the guys that they hang out with was Perkis' friend. And all three of them start hanging out and smoking weed together and having these crazy conversations. So Richard becomes both of their friends. Or he is originally Perkis' friend, apparently in high school, and was a radical leftist of some sort. Hippie might not be the right word for it, but he was a radical outside the system protester type guy. But by the time the story starts, he had given up on that and is now working for the mayor. He's not one of the mayor's top guys, but he's like one or two layers below that. He's that sort of guy, but he came from being a radical. So he's given up on that, sold out. But to show that he's still who he is, when he shows up to these events, he'll wear suits. But he always wear, I think they said Converse, but sneakers of some sort to show, hey, I'm here, but I'm not buying into the system. And his hair was crazy. He's like one of those kinds of guys. But then throughout the story, we see him go from being this guy who is sold out to falling in love and moving in with an heiress who lives in a penthouse. And being someone as radical as he was, there's no way he could ever fall in love with an heiress. But he goes and he, sleeps with her the first night. And then he keeps coming back. Throughout the book, he goes from conquering, having a one-night stand, to slowly falling in love with her. And she gets pregnant, and he moves in. And he goes from being a radical. At the end of the book, he's no longer wearing his sneakers. He's got the wingtip shoes. He's got a haircut to make him look all professional. He's now just one of the guys that works for the mayor, who is now just one of those party guys, right? He goes from being a radical to that. He's not holding on to the things that he says he cares about so much. He's letting that all go for something else. What else happens in this book? At one point, Perkis, who deals with these chronic migraines, they'll go and he'll be fine, and then he'll have one and it'll hit him for a few days. Chase insists that he goes to an acupuncturist, one of the guys that Chase always goes to. Perkis goes to this acupuncturist, and while there, he sees an artwork hanging on the wall of a chaldron with some sort of vase, and it's a picture of it, and he feels connected. He feels like, this is something I need. This is some beautiful piece of art. apparently that hits people a certain way, and he just feels like he needs to have it. It becomes an obsession of his, this children. And so he goes on eBay looking to buy it, and he's not a rich guy. He doesn't really work. He just lives. We don't really know it for sure at the beginning, but barely making it. So there's these childrens that he wants, and they're going for a couple $100. He's trying to get them at the auction, and it's just too much. And he tells his friends about these, or they learn about it. Richard and Chase, and they both see it, and they see that they're going for hundreds of dollars, and they suddenly too also get obsessed with it. But when they go and they get obsessed with it, and they're like, well, if we can't do it, let's all put in together, and maybe we will all be able to go and get this children. But they don't have enough money to get it. So one night, as they're all hanging out there, and Richard's heiress is passed out on the couch, he goes and says, I'll go and take her credit card, I'll set up an account, I'm going to go and try to get this auction. Because at this point they had went from being a couple $100 to a couple $1,000. So he goes, creates an account, and he's like, it's okay, she'll understand. Puts in the amount, tries to buy it. All of a sudden it goes from being a few hundred to a few thousand. From a few thousand, they try to bid $5,000. All of a sudden they're selling for $15,000 a pop. All of a sudden these childrens can no longer be, the price just skyrockets. It's just they're no longer can be gotten. And they're like, okay, this is out of hand. And they go and they spend a few nights just looking at auctions, trying to buy them on the auctions, just trying to get the thrill of the chase. And they can't get it. They've almost given up hope. But Chase is invited because he's in the news because his fiance is a astronaut stuck in space, and it's this whole thing. So he's in the news, and because he's in the news, he gets invited to go to a party at the mayor's house. So he takes Parkus with him as his +1, and Richard is there because he's close enough to be invited to these sorts of things. And they all go, and they see that the mayor has a children. It's up a set of stairs, all the way up on the wall in the corner, just barely out of reach. And they see it, and they want it, and they make this plan to go and steal it. But as they're trying to go through this plan, everyone's ushered out, and Parkus escapes up the staircase while no one's looking, and looks up, trying to figure out the best way to steal it, and he falls asleep on the staircase, and he wakes up in the next morning, and they're like, one of the mayor's assistants talks to him and says, oh yeah, you see that? Yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't think the mayor has even looked at it since I gave it to him. It's just been sitting up there. And she goes and reveals to him that it's not actually a real children, it's a hologram. There is this virtual reality world, sort of like Second Life. There's a different name for it in here, but like that game, this virtual reality world where you can go and create all these different things, create your own worlds, but there's these certain things, these childrens, that there's only a limited number. And because of that, everyone wants one because they are rare. And this is just a hologram of it. This assistant, her brother, is the one who created this video game and created these childrens. And because of that, made this hologram to give to his sister that his sister then gave to the mayor. And so they were going and chasing after this, trying to spend all this money, but the thing that they were wanting to get is not real. And they see it. First they see it in the picture, then they go and they see it online, then they go and they see it in person, and the in person isn't real, it's a hologram. And it's all just because it's just hype. And all of a sudden, once you know it's a hologram and it's not real, it's just because it's in the game, it's no longer of interest, this thing that they've been chasing for months. And that sort of happens with everything. Either one of these two things, like someone changing who they are or lying in order to get ahead and moving on, or the world that you think you grasp just changing underneath you, and you grab a hold on and you realize it's not actually what you thought it was. Chase is throughout it has a fiance, Janet Thrumble, who is an astronaut who is stuck in space. She was sent up to space with the crew and was stuck there because Chinese had laid a minefield out and they were on the wrong side of it and they couldn't get back. And he's just constantly, he doesn't know what to do with his fiancée who's stuck in space, and he has an affair with a ghostwriter. And we learn throughout it all the different things as their space station starts to break down, and we get the letters from her back to him. Apparently they're posted in the newspaper so everyone can know about this sad story about this astronaut stuck in space and this fiancée here stranded on the ground. And it's just keeps slipping out, and he's going and he's trying to get in this relationship with this ghostwriter, this Una. And at the end, Chase remembers it's all an act. He was signed up to be, for whatever reason that isn't made clear, he is pretending to be a fiancé, to be engaged. And the woman who is writing these letters is actually the ghostwriter that he is in love with. By the time he realizes this, at the end, she realizes she's actually in love with him, and he's willing to do anything, and he realizes it's all a fraud, and that he has tricked himself. He doesn't even know it's real. He's forgotten that he signed up to do this, that he has agreed to be an actor, once again, on the screen that no one's going to even recognize because... So what's the point here? I don't know. One, this book is about madness. You can't have a firm grip on reality. There is no reality there. Maybe we're all in a video game. Maybe everyone's an actor. Maybe the mayor is controlling this, or people above the mayor, or people outside the mayor, and the mayor and this whole organization are also just playing this game just like everyone else, or acting on the screen. Or every time you try to grab onto something you think you're holding onto it, it just slips out of your hands. And it feels like this is not something I would like. Normally it's not, but this is so good. And the writing is amazing. And I tried to find bits, but either they're out of context or it doesn't feel right. So to let you know how great the writing is, I'm just going to start from the beginning and read a little bit of this for you. Straight from the first chapter. And you will understand why, or you should understand why, after I read a little bit of this, why this is not something I would like. But hopefully you can catch a little bit of the spark of the brilliant writing that Jonathan Lethem has, at least in the 2 books of his that I've read so far. I first met Perkus Tooth in an office. Not an office where he worked, though I was confused about this at the time, which is itself hardly an uncommon situation for me. This was in the headquarters of the Criterion Collection on 52nd Street and 3rd Avenue on a weekday afternoon at the end of summer. I had gone there to record a series of voiceovers for one of Criterion's high-end DVD reissues, a lost 1950s film noir called The City is a Maze. My role was to play the voice of that film's director, the late immigré author von Traub-Zollner. I would read a series of statements culled from Zollner's interviews and articles as a part of a supplemental documentary being prepared by the curatorial geniuses at Criterion, a couple of whom I'd met at a dinner party. In drawing me into the project, they supplied me with a batch of research material which I browsed unsystematically, as well as a working version of the reconstruction of the film in order for me to glean what the excitement was about. It was the first I've heard of Zollner, so this was hardly a labor of passion, but the enthusiasm of buffs is infectious, and I liked the movie. I no longer considered myself a working actor. This was the only sort of stuff I did anymore, riding the exhaust of my former and vanishing celebrity, the smoky half-life of a child star. An eccentric favor, really. So, there's some words here, like the late émigré author von Traub-Zollner. Like, the people who write like that, normally, what is that? And yet there's something here where Like, this is probably the favorite sentence that I've read right here. This was the only sort of stuff I did anymore, writing the exhaust of my former and vanishing celebrity, the smoky half-life of a child star. It feels like a sentence that is not good or is trying too hard, but I think it's trying just the right amount. I don't know. I feel like I'm doing a horrible job reviewing this book, and yet I do think you should read it, but I cannot, in good faith, suggest that you read it. Thank you for watching.